Captain Marcus Reed stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the large screen before him. The footage played again. The fall of Centauri Prime. Once a jewel of human expansion, now nothing but ruins and ash. The insect-like ships of the Hive swarmed across the planet's surface like locusts, leaving only death behind. Reed's jaw tightened. 20 years. For 20 years, the Hive had eaten its way through the galaxy. System after system fell to their perfect attacks. The Hive was not just an army. It was a single mind spread across billions of bodies. When one saw a weakness, they all knew it. When one learned a tactic, they all used it. Captain. A voice pulled Reed from his dark thoughts. He turned to see Admiral Stone, her aged face lined with worry and lack of sleep. Admiral. Reed nodded. I was just reviewing the Centauri footage again. Again? She raised an eyebrow. You've watched it 17 times since yesterday. Reed gestured to the screen. I keep looking for something. Anything that might show a weakness. Admiral Stone walked to the large window that looked out over the massive ship docks. There, the Defiance hung in space, sleek, dark, and deadly. Earth's most advanced warship, perhaps humanity's last hope. The Defiance is ready, she said. The quantum disruption systems are installed and tested as much as possible without a live target. Reed joined her at the window. The Defiance was beautiful in a cold, hard way, over 800 meters long. Its black hull absorbed light rather than reflected it. Unlike the organic, bulbous ships of the Hive, the Defiance was all angles and purpose. 300 crew, Reed said quietly, against an empire of trillions. Admiral Stone turned to face him. Sometimes, Captain, it only takes one sword to kill a giant. If you hit the right spot. She walked to a nearby table and pressed a button. A holographic map of the galaxy appeared, with large red areas showing Hive territory. The map was mostly red now. Your mission is simple on paper, impossible in reality, she said. Take the Defiance deep into Hive space. Use the stealth systems to avoid detection. Find the central nexus where the Queen Mothers gather and destroy it. Reed stared at the map. The central nexus was at the heart of Hive territory, surrounded by thousands of conquered systems and countless enemy ships. The quantum disruption weapons are our best guess. Stone continued. Based on everything we know about Hive biology, the weapons should break their neural connections. Without the Queen Mother's control, the Hive might fall apart, or at least be weakened enough that we can fight back. And if they don't work? Reed asked. Stone's face hardened. Then humanity falls. Earth is next on their list, Captain. We both know it. Reed nodded slowly. When do we leave? Tomorrow at dawn. Your crew is the best we have left. The best Earth has to offer. The next morning, Reed walked through the busy halls of the Defiance. Crew members saluted as he passed. Some faces showed fear, others determination. All knew they might never see Earth again. He entered the bridge, a large, circular room with workstations arranged around a central command chair. Screens showed the ship's systems, all glowing green and ready. Captain on deck, called Commander Eliza Winters, his second in command. The bridge crew stood at attention. At ease, Reed said, taking his seat. Status report. All systems green, Captain, reported Lieutenant Thomas, the ship's engineer. The quantum drive is stable. Weapons are loaded and ready. Stealth systems are online, added Lieutenant Amaradias from the tactical station. We should be invisible to Hive sensors as long as we don't use main engines or weapons. Reed nodded. Good. What about the crew? Commander Winters stepped forward. 300 crew members, all present and accounted for. The best pilots, engineers, and soldiers Earth has. We're ready, sir. Reed looked around at their faces. Young, most of them. Too young for such a burden. But there was no one else. Very well. Commander Winters, begin undocking procedures. The massive clamps holding the Defiance released with hollow booms that echoed through the hull. The ship drifted free of the dock, its minimal thrusters keeping it stable. On the main screen, Admiral Stone appeared from Earth Command. "Captain Reed, you are cleared for departure. May God go with you, because we cannot." Reed nodded. "We won't fail, Admiral." "I know you won't," she said, and her image vanished. "Set course for the Hive border," Reed ordered. "Prepare for quantum jump." The helmsman's fingers flew over the controls. "Course set, Captain. Quantum drive spooling up." Reed took a deep breath. Once they jumped, there was no turning back. They would be alone, deep in enemy territory, with no support and no rescue possible. "Captain," said Lieutenant Dias, "I've been studying Hive communication patterns. There might be weaknesses in how they coordinate over long distances." Reed turned to her. "Explain." "Their neural network is fast, near instantaneous, but it still has to follow the laws of physics. Over vast distances, there must be relay points. If we could identify and target those." Reed nodded. "Good thinking, Lieutenant. Make that a priority once we're in Hive space." He turned back to the main screen, which now showed the stars ahead. Somewhere out there was the heart of the enemy, the central nexus, and they were going to find it. "All hands, secure for quantum jump," Reed announced over the ship-wide comm. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, crew members strapped into acceleration couches or held onto safety rails. In the medical bay, Dr. Morgan checked his supplies one last time. In the engine room, engineers monitored the experimental quantum drive with nervous eyes. "Quantum drive at full power," reported the helmsman. "Ready to jump on your mark." Reed took one last look at Earth on a side screen. Blue, beautiful, alive. Worth any sacrifice to protect. "Execute jump," he ordered. Space twisted around the Defiance. Stars stretched into lines. There was a moment of impossible pressure, as if the universe itself resisted their passage. Then, with a flash that no human eye could truly perceive, the ship vanished from Earth space. The Defiance had begun its journey into the heart of darkness. When they emerged from quantum space hours later, Earth was just another distant star. Ahead lay the border systems, the first conquered by the Hive, now transformed into bizarre alien landscapes covered in massive Hive structures. "Stealth systems active," reported Lieutenant Dias. "No sign of detection." "Begin long-range scans," Reed ordered. "Look for Hive patrol patterns, communication relays, anything that might help us navigate deeper." As the crew worked, Reed stood alone at the front viewport, 300 humans against an empire of trillions. The odds were impossible. But humans had always done the impossible. It was time to do it again. The Defiance slipped through space like a shadow. For 3 days, they had moved deeper into Hive territory, using asteroid fields and radiation belts to mask their presence. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display. 5 Hive patrol ships passed less than 50,000 kilometers away, close enough to see with the naked eye through the viewports. "They have no idea we're here," whispered Lieutenant Dias, almost afraid to break the silence. Reed nodded. "The stealth system works better than we hoped, but we can't get overconfident." The Hive ships resembled massive insects, their hulls organic rather than built, with sections that pulsed and moved like living tissue. They were beautiful in a terrible way. "Sensors are picking up a small planet in the next system," reported Commander Winters. "It was once a human colony. New Eden." Reed's jaw tightened. "Let's take a closer look, but keep our distance." The Defiance changed course, using minimal engine power to avoid detection. Hours later, they entered orbit around what had once been a garden world. The bridge crew fell silent as the images appeared on screen. New Eden was now unrecognizable. The green forests and blue oceans were gone, replaced by vast, gray Hive structures that covered the entire surface. Massive towers reached into the atmosphere, connected by organic bridges. Between them flew smaller Hive creatures, carrying materials or food. "My God," someone whispered. Magnify that section, Reed ordered, pointing to an area where movement caught his eye. The screen zoomed in. What they saw made even the hardened soldiers on the bridge turn away. Human colonists, or what was left of them, shuffled in long lines into the Hive entrances. Their eyes were empty, their movements mechanical. Many had Hive technology grafted onto their bodies. "They're being processed," Lieutenant Diaz said, her voice tight with anger. "Turned into workers or food." Reed's hands gripped the railing until his knuckles turned white. This is what happens to every world they take. This is what will happen to Earth if we fail. He turned to his crew. "I want all sensor data recorded. Earth needs to see what we're fighting." As the Defiance continued its covert observation, alarms suddenly blared. "Captain," Lieutenant Thomas called from engineering. "We have a problem with the stealth system. Power fluctuation in Section 4. Reed reacted instantly. "Full power to stealth. Move us behind that moon. Now." The ship accelerated, hiding in the shadow of New Eden's largest moon, just as 3 Hive patrol ships changed course toward their former position. They detected something, but they're not sure what, Commander Winters reported, watching the Hive ships scan the area they had just vacated. For tense minutes, the bridge crew held their breath. Finally, the Hive ships resumed their patrol route. "That was too close," Reed said. "Lieutenant Thomas, status of the stealth system." "Fixed for now, Captain. But the system wasn't designed for continuous use. We'll need to power down for maintenance soon." Reed nodded. "Find us somewhere safe to hide. We need to make repairs before pushing deeper." 2 days later, the Defiance hid in a dense nebula, its hull coated with cosmic dust. Inside, the crew worked in shifts to repair not just the stealth system, but other systems strained by their journey. Lieutenant Diaz had converted one of the ship's labs into an analysis center. Screens covered the walls, showing Hive communication patterns she had recorded. Captain Reed entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Diaz, who accepted it gratefully. "Any progress?" he asked. She pointed to one of the screens. "I think I found something. A Hive communicates through a neural network, like a giant brain spread across space. But the signal has to travel, and over long distances, it degrades." She touched a control, and the display changed to show a map of Hive territory, with glowing points scattered throughout. "These are relay stations. They boost and clean the signal between distant Hive clusters and the central nexus. Without them, parts of the Hive would be cut off from the Queen's control." Reed studied the map with growing interest. "If we destroy one, we create a blind spot." Diaz finished. "A section of Hive space where the Queens can't see or control as effectively." Reed smiled for the first time in days. "Good work, Lieutenant. If we—" He was interrupted by the ship-wide alert system. "Captain to the bridge. Urgent." Reed and Diaz ran to the bridge, where Commander Winters was already organizing a response to whatever emergency had arisen. "Report," Reed barked as he entered. Sensors detected a small ship entering the nebula. Winters explained. "Not Hive design. It appears to be human, sir." Reed frowned. "Human? Out here?" "Put it on screen." The main display showed a battered transport vessel, barely larger than a shuttle. Its hull was scorched from weapons fire, and it moved erratically, as if damaged or piloted by someone unskilled. "They're broadcasting a distress signal," the communications officer reported. "Audio only." "Let's hear it," Reed ordered. A static-filled message played through the bridge speakers. "Survivors from New Titan. Hive attack. Need immediate assistance. Running out of air." Reed hesitated. This deep in enemy territory, any contact with another ship was dangerous. But they couldn't ignore humans in distress. "It could be a trap," Commander Winters cautioned. "Or it could be survivors who need our help," Reed countered. "Scan that ship thoroughly. Any sign of Hive technology or biology, we back off immediately." The minutes ticked by as the Defiance's sensors probed the damaged vessel. 12 human life signs detected, reported the sensor officer. No Hive signals. Their life support is failing. Sir. Reed made his decision. Bring them aboard. Full quarantine protocols. Security teams on standby. Hours later, Reed entered the ship's medical bay. 12 survivors had been rescued, now being treated for injuries and malnutrition. Dr. Morgan approached Reed with a datapad. They're from the research outpost on New Titan, the doctor explained. A Hive attacked 3 weeks ago. These people escaped in an emergency transport. Reed nodded, then noticed one of the survivors, an older man with gray hair and intense eyes, watching him closely. Who's that? Reed asked quietly. Dr. James Weber, Morgan replied. He was the lead cynobiologist at New Titan. Spent years studying hive biology before the invasion. Reed approached the man, who sat up straighter as the captain neared. Dr. Weber, I'm Captain Reed. Weber gripped Reed's hand with surprising strength. Captain, your ship, it's not like anything I've seen before. Military. Yes, special mission. Weber's eyes narrowed. You're hunting them, aren't you? The Hive. Reed didn't answer directly. You studied them. What can you tell me about their weaknesses? A small smile crossed Weber's tired face. I spent 15 years looking for exactly that, Captain. And I found something. Something they tried to kill me for discovering. Reed leaned closer. What? Their neural network has limitations. The Queens need signal clarity to maintain control. That's why they build relay stations. But there's more. Weber lowered his voice. Their biology, the way their minds connect, it's vulnerable to specific energy frequencies. Hit them with the right signal, and their perfect coordination shatters. For the first time since leaving Earth, Reed felt real hope. Dr. Weber, I think we need to talk more. In private. As they left the medical bay, Commander Winters contacted Reed through his communicator. Captain, Lieutenant Diaz has identified a major Hive relay station 2 light-years from our position. It's lightly defended. They don't expect attacks this deep in their territory. Reed looked at Weber, then back at his communicator. Tell Lieutenant Diaz to prepare a full tactical briefing. We've just found our first target. The hunt had begun. The attack on the Hive relay station had gone both better and worse than expected. Better, because they had destroyed it completely. Worse, because the Defiance had taken heavy damage in the process. Captain Reed walked through the damaged sections of his ship, surveying the repairs. Emergency lights cast red shadows across bent metal and exposed wiring. Crew members worked tirelessly, welding broken pipes and replacing damaged systems. How bad is it? Reed asked as Commander Winters joined him. The main engines are operating at 60%. Stealth systems are functional but unreliable. We lost 4 crew members. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed the pain of those losses. Reed nodded grimly. They had struck a significant blow. According to Dr. Weber and Lieutenant Diaz, they had created a blind spot in Hive communications that would take weeks to fix. But the cost had been high. And the quantum disruption weapon? He asked. Undamaged, thankfully. Lieutenant Thomas says it's stable. She paused. Captain, the crew is talking. Some of them think we should turn back, report what we've learned so far. Reed stopped walking. And what do you think, Commander? Winters met his gaze. I think we've come too far to turn back. We've proven the Hive can be hurt, but the mission is getting harder with every light year. Gather the senior officers in 1 hour, Reed ordered. We need to discuss our next move. In the ship's conference room, the mood was tense. Lieutenant Thomas reported on repairs. Dr. Morgan gave an update on the wounded. Lieutenant Diaz presented new data on Hive movements in response to their attack. Dr. Weber, who had been made a temporary advisor, spoke last. The relay station attack confirmed my theories. When it was destroyed, the Hive ships in the area became disorganized. Some even fired on each other in confusion. He activated a display showing data collected during the battle. But the effect was temporary. The queens adjusted quickly, routing commands through alternative pathways. To truly cripple them, we need to strike at the central nexus itself. Reed studied the star map. The attack has given us an advantage. This sector of space is now less coordinated, less defended. We have a path forward. A path to what exactly? Asked Lieutenant Thomas, his voice strained from exhaustion. Even if we reach the central nexus, what can one ship do against the heart of their empire? The room fell silent. It was the question many had thought, but few dared ask. Reed looked around at his officers. Dr. Weber and Lieutenant Diaz have been working on something. Tell them. Diaz stood. The samples we collected from the relay station contained biological computer components, living tissue that processes and transmits the Hive's neural signals. Dr. Weber found specific frequencies that disrupt these signals. Weber continued. The quantum disruption weapon was designed based on theoretical models. Now we can calibrate it to the exact frequency it will shatter the Queen's control network. One shot, Reed said. One perfectly aimed shot at the central nexus could break the entire hive mind. Without the Queen's guidance, their empire falls apart. Slowly, hope began to replace doubt in the officers' eyes. But Commander Winters remained concerned. The nexus will be the most heavily defended location in hive space. Getting close enough to use the weapon may be impossible. We'll find a way, Reed insisted. We have to. As the meeting ended, Reed noticed Dr. Morgan lingering behind. Something on your mind, Doctor? Yes, Captain. It's about the survivors we rescued. Morgan looked uncomfortable. One of them, Technician Gray, has been acting strangely, keeping to himself, accessing computer terminals at odd hours. Reed frowned. You think he's up to something? I don't know. But during my examinations, I noticed unusual scar tissue near his brainstem. It could be nothing. But it could be hive technology. Reed finished. Keep an eye on him, Doctor. Discreetly. That night, as most of the crew slept, alarms blared throughout the ship. Reed rushed from his quarters to find security personnel surrounding the engine room. What's happening? He demanded. Technician Gray, reported the security chief. He was caught tampering with the engine cooling systems. When confronted, he attacked 2 crew members. Reed pushed through to see Gray being restrained. The man's eyes were wild, his movements jerky and unnatural. Most disturbing was the back of his neck, where the skin had split open to reveal a small, pulsing organ that wasn't human. Dr. Weber arrived moments later and paled at the sight. A control node. He's been partially converted. A sleeper agent. The hive knows we're here, Reed realized. They let us rescue the survivors so this spy could sabotage us from within. Worse, Weber said, examining the damage to the engines. He was trying to overload the quantum drive. If he had succeeded, Reed didn't need him to finish. The explosion would have destroyed not just the Defiance, but everything within a light year. How many systems did he access? Reed asked the security chief. Main engines, navigation, and communications. We're checking for sabotage now. Commander Winters arrived, her face grim. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting multiple hive ships converging on our position. At least 30 vessels, including 2 hive carriers. Reed's mind raced. Their location was compromised. The ship was damaged. They had a traitor on board who might have planted other sabotage they hadn't found yet. How long until the hive fleet reaches us? He asked. 3 hours at most, Winters replied. Reed straightened his back. This was the moment that would define their mission, perhaps define humanity's future. We can't run, and we can't hide, he said. Lieutenant Thomas, what's the status of our weapons? Conventional weapons at 80%. Quantum disruption weapon is functional but needs 12 hours for full calibration with the new data. We don't have 12 hours, Reed said. Lieutenant Diaz, what's the closest route to the central nexus from here? Diaz checked her datapad. through the Cygnus Nebula. It's unstable, radioactive. The Hive avoids it because the radiation interferes with their neural network. Perfect, Reed said. That's where we're going. Sir, Winters objected. The nebula is dangerous for us too. The radiation levels are preferable to certain death, Reed finished. And the nebula gives us another advantage. He walked to the main display and brought up the nebula's composition. These gas pockets are highly flammable. If we can lure the Hive fleet in and ignite the gases. Understanding dawned on the officers' faces. Prepare for emergency jump to the Cygnus Nebula, Reed ordered, and get Dr. Weber and Lieutenant Diaz working on a way to speed up the weapon calibration. We may not have much time once we arrive. As the crew rushed to their stations, Reed stood alone for a moment, considering their desperate gamble. They would dive into one of the most dangerous regions of space, pursued by an overwhelming enemy force with a weapon not yet ready for use. But sometimes, the only way forward was through the fire. Captain, called Lieutenant Diaz from her station. High ships have increased speed. Estimated arrival now 2 hours. Reed nodded. Begin jump countdown. We're not dying here today. The Defiance hummed as its damaged engines powered up, preparing to leap into the heart of the nebula. And closer to their ultimate target, the central nexus itself. The Defiance burst from quantum space into the Cygnus Nebula in a flash of energy. Alarms blared throughout the ship as radiation warnings activated. Outside the viewports, swirling clouds of purple and green gas created an otherworldly landscape. Radiation shields at maximum, reported Lieutenant Thomas. They'll hold for now, but we can't stay here long. Captain Reed nodded. Status of the Hive fleet. They'll be here in 20 minutes, said Lieutenant Diaz. 30 ships, including 2 carriers. Reed studied the tactical display. The nebula was a maze of gas clouds, radiation pockets, and debris. Dangerous for any ship, but especially for the Hive with their organic technology. Here's the plan, Reed announced to his bridge crew. We'll move deeper into the nebula, to this large gas pocket. He pointed to a massive cloud on the display. When the Hive follows, we'll ignite the gases with a controlled fusion burst. Commander Winters frowned. Sir, that close to a fusion reaction. Our shields might not. They won't follow us all the way in, Reed interrupted. They'll spread out to surround us. That's when we'll ignite the gas and make a blind quantum jump through the explosion. The officers exchanged worried glances. A blind quantum jump was incredibly risky. They could emerge inside a star or planet, but staying meant certain death. Lieutenant Thomas, how are the engines? Reed asked. Holding at 65%. The quantum drive is damaged but functional. 1 jump is all we can manage before major repairs. Reed's expression remained determined. 1 jump is all we need. Plot a course for the central nexus. The bridge fell silent. Sir, Commander Winters said quietly, the central nexus is the most heavily defended location in high space. If we jump there directly, it's also the last place they'll expect us, Reed replied. After the nebula explosion, they'll think we're destroyed or running for home. This may be our only chance to reach the nexus with the element of surprise. Dr. Weber, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Captain, the weapon calibration is only at 70%. We need more time. Time is the one thing we don't have, Doctor. Can it work at 70%? Weber hesitated. Possibly, but the effect might be limited or temporary. Limited is better than nothing, Reed said firmly. Everyone to battle stations. This is what we came for. The Defiance moved deeper into the nebula, its engines leaving a faint trail that the pursuing Hive ships could follow. Inside, the crew worked frantically to prepare for their desperate gambit. In the weapons control room, Lieutenant Diaz and Dr. Weber made final adjustments to the quantum disruption weapon. If we boost power to the main emitter, Weber suggested, we might compensate for the incomplete calibration. Diaz nodded, but that could burn out the system after 1 shot. 1 shot is all we'll get anyway, Weber replied grimly. On the bridge, Reed watched as the first Hive ships entered the nebula. As predicted, they spread out, trying to surround the human vessel. "They're in position," reported the tactical officer. "All Hive ships have entered the gas cloud." Reed took a deep breath. "Ignition sequence in 3, 2, 1. Fire." The Defiance launched a small fusion missile into the heart of the gas cloud, then immediately powered up its quantum drive. The missile detonated, creating a chain reaction as the gases ignited. A massive wave of energy expanded outward, engulfing the Hive ships. "Quantum jump now," Reed ordered. The stars stretched around them as the ship leaped into quantum space, the explosion's shockwave just meters behind them. The Defiance shuddered violently, systems overloading throughout the vessel. Then darkness. Reed awoke to the sound of emergency systems and the red glow of backup lighting. He pulled himself from the floor where he'd been thrown during the jump. "Status report," he called, his voice hoarse from smoke. Commander Winters was already on her feet, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. "Multiple systems damage. Life support at minimal levels. Engines offline." "Where are we?" Reed asked, dreading the answer. Lieutenant Diaz, who had returned to the bridge just before the jump, checked her damaged console. Her eyes widened. "Sir, we're exactly where we wanted to be." She looked up, her expression a mixture of awe and fear. "We're in orbit around the central nexus." Reed moved to the viewport. Outside, against the backdrop of stars, floated an enormous structure, part machine, part living organism. It was roughly spherical, hundreds of kilometers across, with countless ships coming and going from docking bays along its surface. "The heart of the Hive Empire. They haven't detected us yet," Diaz said. "Our systems are so damaged that we're barely registering on sensors. They think we're just debris." Reed felt a glimmer of hope. "How long until they realize we're here?" "Hours, maybe. But we won't last that long without repairs." Dr. Weber entered the bridge, his face grim. "Captain, I've checked the quantum disruption weapon. It's intact but can't be fired from this distance. We need to get closer, much closer." Reed stared at the massive structure. "How close?" "Inside," Weber answered. "The weapon needs to be placed at the central control hub to affect all the Queen Mothers simultaneously." Silence fell on the bridge as the implications sank in. "A boarding party," Commander Winters said finally. "A small team could take a shuttle, disguised with the Hive signatures we recorded, plant the weapon, and get out before it detonates." Reed nodded slowly. "I'll lead the team." "No, Captain," Winters countered. "The ship needs you. I'll lead the boarding party." Before Reed could argue, Lieutenant Thomas called from engineering through the comm system. "Captain, we've got more problems. Life support is failing faster than expected. We have maybe 5 hours of air left." Reed made his decision. "Commander Winters, select 4 crew members for the boarding party. Lieutenant Diaz, you go with them. You understand the weapon better than anyone except Dr. Weber." "What about the Defiance?" Winters asked. "We'll make emergency repairs. Once the weapon is planted, we'll pick you up and get out before detonation." Reed looked around at his crew. "This is it. Everything we fought for comes down to the next few hours." An hour later, a small shuttle launched from the Defiance. Modified to broadcast Hive identification signals and covered with samples of Hive organic material, it looked like just another worker craft approaching the massive nexus. Inside, Commander Winters and her team prepared their weapons and the modified quantum disruption device. "Remember," Winters told them, "we plant the device at the central hub, set the timer for 30 minutes, and get out. The Defiance will meet us at extraction point Alpha." Lieutenant Diaz checked the device one last time. Once this activates, it will disrupt the neural connection between the Queens and their forces. Without guidance, the entire hive mind collapses. The shuttle approached a small maintenance dock on the Nexus's surface. So far, their disguise was working. "One way or another," Winters said quietly, The Hive Empire ends today. Back on the Defiance, Captain Reed watched the shuttle dock successfully with the Nexus. Now all they could do was wait and hope. Lieutenant Thomas approached Reed. "Captain, I've managed to restore partial engine power. We can move, but another quantum jump is impossible." Reed nodded. "Good work. Get us into position for extraction." As the Defiance slowly moved to the rendezvous point, an alarm sounded. "Multiple Hive ships changing course," called the tactical officer. "They're heading toward us. I think they've detected us, sir." Reed's face hardened. Their time had just run out. Inside the central nexus, Commander Winters led her team through pulsing organic corridors. The walls themselves seemed alive, with strange lights flowing through vein-like structures. The air was thick and humid, smelling of something alien and sweet. "Stay close," Winters whispered. "According to Dr. Weber's data, the central chamber should be 2 levels down." They moved cautiously, using the Hive biological signatures they had collected to mask their presence. So far, the disguise worked. The few Hive drones they encountered barely glanced at them. Lieutenant Diaz checked her scanner. "The neural signal is getting stronger. We're close to the Queens." The team reached a vast chamber with a ceiling that stretched hundreds of meters high. Inside, dozens of massive creatures hung suspended in glowing liquid pods. Each was 3 times the size of a human, with multiple limbs and enlarged head structures. The Queen Mothers. There, Diaz pointed to a pulsing column in the center of the room. "That's the main neural relay. If we plant the device there, it will disrupt the entire network." Winters nodded. "Move fast. We have 15 minutes to get back to the extraction point." Aboard the Defiance, Captain Reed faced a desperate situation. 3 Hive battleships approached, their weapons charging. "Evasive maneuvers," Reed ordered. "Use the Nexus for cover." The damaged ship limped around the massive structure, trying to stay out of the enemy's firing range. "Sir," called Lieutenant Thomas, "engines are at 40%, weapons at 30%. We can't outrun them, and we can't outfight them." Reed studied the tactical display. "We don't need to. We just need to survive long enough for the boarding team to complete their mission." He turned to the weapons officer. "Target their lead ship's sensor array. Fire when ready." The Defiance fired its remaining missiles at the lead Hive ship. The explosions didn't cause major damage, but temporarily blinded its sensors. "That won't hold them long," Reed said. "Status of the boarding team." "Still inside," reported the communications officer. "No contact since they entered the central chamber." Reed checked the time. 10 minutes until the planned extraction. They needed to buy more time. "Lieutenant Thomas, divert all power from life support to engines and weapons. We'll breathe later." Inside the Nexus, Winters and her team had reached the central relay. Lieutenant Diaz carefully attached the quantum disruption device to the pulsing column. "Setting timer for 15 minutes, she reported. "That should give us enough time to." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the chamber. A drone had spotted them, recognizing them as intruders. "We've been made," shouted one of the team members. "Hostiles incoming." Dozens of Hive warriors poured into the chamber from multiple entrances. Unlike the mindless drones, these were bred for combat, fast, strong, and armed with organic weapons that fired acidic projectiles. "Protect the device," Winters ordered as her team took defensive positions. "Nothing stops it from activating." The humans fought bravely, their weapons cutting down the first wave of attackers. But more kept coming. Lieutenant Diaz finished programming the device. "It's set. We need to go now." Winters nodded, firing at another group of warriors. "Fall back to the exit. Maintain covering fire." The team retreated step by step, fighting their way back toward the docking bay where their shuttle waited. One team member fell, then another. A third was badly wounded, but kept moving. Winters touched her communicator. "Captain, device is planted. Timer set for 12 minutes. We're moving to extraction, but facing heavy resistance." Reed received the message with both relief and concern. Acknowledged, Commander. We're incoming to extraction point, but we've got problems of our own. The Defiance was taking heavy fire from the Hive ships. Several sections were breached, with emergency force fields barely containing the atmosphere. Divert all remaining power to forward shields, Reed ordered. Take us in close to Docking Bay 7. We'll pick up the team and make a run for it. The helmsman looked uncertain. Sir, at this damage level, I don't know if we can outrun them, even with the disruption device activated. Reed's expression was grim but determined. We don't need to outrun them forever, just long enough. Commander Winters and the remaining members of her team, just her and Lieutenant Diaz now, reached the docking bay. Their shuttle had been destroyed by Hive warriors. Captain, Winters called over the comm. Shuttle is gone. We're stranded. Hold position. Reed's voice came back. We're coming to you. Through the docking bay's force field, they could see the Defiance approaching, taking fire from pursuing Hive ships. Its hull was blackened and damaged, with sections clearly exposed to space. They'll never make it, Diaz said, her voice tight. Winters checked her timer. 8 minutes until detonation. The two women took cover as more Hive warriors entered the docking bay. They fired their remaining ammunition, knowing they couldn't hold out much longer. Suddenly, the Defiance appeared at the docking port, its remaining weapons firing at the Hive ships. The boarding ramp extended into the bay. Run, Winters shouted, providing covering fire as Diaz sprinted for the ship. Lieutenant Diaz made it aboard, but as Winters turned to follow, a Hive warrior shot caught her in the back. She fell to her knees, just meters from safety. Diaz turned back, but Winters waved her away. Go, complete the mission. Inside the ship, Captain Reed himself ran down to the boarding ramp. Ignoring the danger, he charged into the docking bay, firing at the approaching warriors. He reached Winters and dragged her back toward the ship as Diaz provided covering fire. All aboard, Reed shouted as they made it inside. Get us out of here. The Defiance pulled away from the nexus as the timer counted down. 4 minutes. Maximum speed, Reed ordered, helping the wounded Winters to the bridge. We need distance before that device activates. The damaged ship accelerated away from the nexus, pursued by Hive vessels. 3 minutes. They're gaining on us, reported the tactical officer. Shields failing. 2 minutes. Hold together, Reed whispered to his ship. Just a little longer. 1 minute. The pursuing ships were almost within boarding range when suddenly, a massive energy pulse emanated from the central nexus. The shockwave washed over the Hive ships first, then reached the Defiance. Throughout Hive space, the effect was immediate and devastating. The Queen Mothers convulsed as their neural connections shattered. Without their guidance, confusion spread through the entire Hive mind. On the view screen, Reed and his crew watched in awe as Hive ships began drifting aimlessly. Some fired at each other, others simply went dark. It worked, Diaz said in disbelief. The connection is broken. Across hundreds of systems, the same scene played out. The perfect coordination that had made the Hive invincible was gone. Individual drones and warriors, cut off from the Queen's control, reverted to basic instincts or shut down entirely. 3 days later, the badly damaged Defiance limped through space, making for the border of what had been Hive territory. Commander Winters was recovering in the medical bay, though she would never fully heal from her injuries. On the bridge, Captain Reed received a transmission from a nearby system, one that had been under Hive control for years. "This is Freedom Station," came a voice they had never expected to hear again. "To unknown human vessel. We are free." The Hive controllers suddenly collapsed 2 days ago. "Please identify yourself." Reed smiled for the first time in weeks. "This is Captain Marcus Reed of the Earth warship Defiance. We bring good news from the heart of Hive space." In the days that followed, they made contact with other liberated systems. Former slave species were rising up against their weakened oppressors. Ships long hidden were emerging to join the fight. Without the Queen's coordination, the once invincible empire was collapsing. On the observation deck, Reed stood with Commander Winters, who was in a wheelchair, and Lieutenant Dias. Together, they watched distant flashes of light as battles continued across the stars. "We did it," Winters said quietly. "One ship against an empire." "Not just any ship," Reed replied. "A human ship, with a human crew who refused to give up." Dias studied her sensor readings. "The Hive isn't completely defeated. Some queens survived. Some sections of their forces are regrouping. This war isn't over." "No," Reed agreed. "But for the first time, it's a fair fight. And we've shown the galaxy that the Hive can be beaten." He looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth and the long journey home. "Send a message to Earth Command," he told the communications officer. "Tell them, mission accomplished. The Galactic Empire is falling. Humanity stands undefeated." As the Defiance continued its journey home, word of its victory spread from system to system. The legend grew of the lone human warship that had broken an empire. And throughout the galaxy, oppressed peoples looked to the stars with something they had almost forgotten: hope.